Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Big Cat Aethercast, your Final Fantasy XIV podcast starring two dumbass Hrothgars.
Well, it took us less time than I thought it was going to be before we recorded another one of these.
Yeah, pretty much. So, to cover over what we are going to be doing for this series, or if you haven't seen the first one, I, Rei, am taking my friend Leo, who is going through Final Fantasy XIV for the first time, pretty much.
Yes, don't you mean Rei'tan and Roaring?
Well, yes, my Hrothgar's name is Rei'tan, and his is Roaring Smite. But regardless, the reason we're here today is to talk about two specific side things that I had asked Leo to get through for our next recording.
Crystal Tower and
Hildibrand.
The Hildibrand side quest, or the first series of Hildibrand side quests.
Yes. And
we do have something to talk about before that first.
Oh, yes.
Because the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest occurred since this recording, 2 weeks ago?
About a week and a half or so, yeah.
Let's put 2 weeks by time of posting.
Yes. And, well, I have seen the trailer for what's coming on.
I have. You showed me the trailer after the fact.
Yes, I did, because I kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were of it, given the fact that we're going to Fantasy Brazil and Mexico.
Well, I think it's at least a very sporting retelling. It definitely leans into sort of the beach vibes Costa del Sol had, which was my prior experience to that. But no, they're actually going to go for much more of a pirate-themed experience, which is at least hinted by what people thinking one of the new two classes is going to be.
Yeah, several people have been thinking about the different jobs that Yoshi P is hinting at from his t-shirt.
Well, the one that was hinted from his t-shirt was featured the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who are Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Donatello, who are based off of the four famous Renaissance figures.
Yes.
And so many people have theorized that the leading theory is that it's Pictomancer coming probably as a support class, no?
It's going to be the two classes that he had mentioned were coming out are a physical melee DPS and a caster DPS.
Okay, so Pictomancer would be magical caster, and then physical melee would be what everyone thinks is Corsair. Corsair, pirate, swashbuckler, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what everyone is thinking it's going to be. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea what it's going to be.
I'm inclined to believe those new rumors just because we have run the gamut of what I would say traditional Final Fantasy classes are, and so now we're going more into this was rather random.
What?
This is rather random bag of jobs.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, because Culinarian and Goldsmith are support classes, but Pictomancer, Corsair, definitely much more of the hybrid or out of left field jobs.
Right. So, again, that's pretty much all Leo has seen about the new stuff.
Well, that and the graphics update.
That too.
They're saying that updates, everything considered, is going to be 100 gigabytes for the Dawn Trail is going to be the new expansion?
Yeah, Dawn Trail is the new expansion, and everything's going to be the new graphics update in that.
Right. And have you practiced your new meme line? Because remember, they expanded the free trial now.
Oh yes, the
critically acclaimed award-winning
MMO Final Fantasy XIV, complete with the award-winning Heaven's Ward expansion and the not so critically acclaimed expansion Stormblood, all up to level 70.
So I understand. Okay, we're adding a new one. We need to squeeze out a bit more for the people who are actually joining the front end.
Yeah.
Why is it that Stormblood is not as critically acclaimed?
Because it's stuck between Heaven's Ward and Shadowbringers.
So it's more of the ugly stepchild syndrome.
It's still better than ARR, not as good as Heaven's Ward.
Not as good as Shadowbringer.
Definitely not as good as Shadowbringer.
Okay.
Some people really like Stormblood, and more power to them. I'm more middling on it.
Uh-huh.
But that's more my problem with one specific character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's been memed half to Earth and back, freaking Grahatia having tacos.
Yes.
And then we see Urion J looking as suave as ever, and I think that's most of the memes.
Yeah, Orion J with a pina colada.
Oh, yes, and then...
or Margaritaville.
Or Margaritaville. Yeah, no, Margaritaville, because that was the one that was trending recently. And then everyone's saying that Meteor Survivor was putting on his best Captain Jack Sparrow.
Well, it's more like he's pulling off Will Turner more than anything.
You have got to be the worst Meteor Survivor I have ever met.
But you have heard of me.
So, I think that's most of it. I do think, having at least seen enough of early Final Fantasy, it is definitely due for a graphics update. Because it's, 10 years old? 7 years old?
It is now 10 years old.
10 years old. So yeah, definitely due for a graphics update.
Yeah, and the graphics update is going to start at 7.0, and it's going to retroactively come in from 2.0, then to 3.0.
So probably by 5.0, 6.0, we would actually have it occur at the pace if everything goes according to plan.
Well, it's going to kind of close the gap, basically.
Right, but they're going to... Everyone who's at 7.0 is going up there.
Yes.
And then they're going to go back and, okay, we're going to polish up 2, we're going to polish up 3.
Yeah, we're going to change... We're going to make sure everything in the other areas and the other maps looks better.
Right, that's what I mean. So,
yeah.
like, by the time that it catches up...
Everything will be...
By Shadowbringer or Endwalker, I should finally see it.
Hopefully.
Because I won't see it before Dawn Trail comes out, probably.
Probably not. At the pace we're going, it's going to take us at least a couple of years to get you through the MMO.
Not that long. I mean, you did it in, 2?
I did it in less time.
Because when did you start? You started during COVID.
I started during COVID. It took me a while to get through everything, but I think it took me about... Because I was going at a bit of a slower pace. It took me about maybe half a year.
Okay. I would say that's accurate, and I think that mostly was getting over the hump and learning MMO things. I would assume, going forward from this point on, it's going to be a little bit faster, because as everyone has told me, ARR is a huge drag, and I've done, by point of recording, up to 2.5.
You've gotten to 2.5.
Gotten to 2.5.
Yes, but that's not what this... podcast is going to be about.
We were trying to squeeze in 2.55, but we did not get there in time, so that's going to be another update probably going into early parts of Heavenward.
Right. That should probably be a sooner podcast than even I'm expecting, so it might come in within
6 weeks.
Less than that, I'd like to hope.
Well, it depends, but the other thing that happened, or that's happening as of time of recording, is the Moonfire Festival.
Yes.
So, which we did that set of quests.
Yeah, which was the Sentai stuff.
Which, everyone's going Power Rangers now with the holiday fair.
Right, and you're planning on just going Red Ranger, of course.
Yes, but I've also seen plenty of people, even before the actual event went live, there were people, I remember seeing Power Rangers gifs of Alexander. And that's just unavoidable. You just learn that as part of FF14 culture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, part of the Alexander raid, there's literally a Megazord fight.
There are multiple Megazord fights.
Yeah, and in the Ultimate version, which we are never doing...
Well, I'm not doing it with you. I may have someone else who may drag me through it, but anyway.
Don't, trust me, Ultimates require a lot of patience, a lot of time, several hours, if not several weeks, to get through.
My Friday group apparently has no life.
Oh boy.
But anyway, besides just mind-boggling boredom, I have seen that there have been at least a couple of tribute videos to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers already as a result of this update. So
that has actually shown up on both of our feeds.
Yes. So I will say that it's definitely fun. I definitely think that I look forward to going back and seeing more of those quests now that I understand how it works.
Yeah. Basically, the seasonal ones are basically like 2 quests tops that you do to get a special item or a special outfit for the holiday.
And it usually is a lower level. You can do it like level 30.
Usually it's like level 15, but for some reason this one was level 30.
Well, because of the area it was in, probably.
Probably. Yeah, because you weren't... I don't think you were able to get this, but one of the things that I really like for my dancer outfit is the Little Ladies dance, where my Hrothgar dances around with a little fan in his hand.
No, I don't... I think that was for White Day?
I believe so.
So, but that one is reoccurring, so that one will probably come back, won't it?
Odds are that emote's going to show up on the pay shop.
That's also fair.
Yeah, because you can't get it now, so you're probably going to have to get it from the...
And that's why it costs $8.
Probably.
Uh-huh. Because we also were looking for the Power Ranger stances, which those are paid for.
Yes. But yeah, with those out of the way, I figured we might as well talk about the complete and utter silliness that is Hildibrand.
Okay, I had heard stories of people telling me how bullshit the Hildibrand side quests were. I was not fully prepared for the amount of nonsense the first saga had.
Oh, sweet summer child.
So let's start off with... I think that I want to talk about the characters first before going through the storyline, because that at least... Well, how would you prefer it? Because either way, we're going to have to go through both. I guess let's start off with the premise of the Hildibrand quests.
Yes.
So the first Hildibrand quest you get is you meet up with...
Nashu Makaraka.
A Mikote named Nashu, who basically says that she is upset over the loss of her former master, and basically is trying to find out rumors of his demise. Or I guess she was following up with his legacy, and this led to her investigating a zombie outbreak, which consequently turns out to be involving her former master.
I should mention that for people who have not found out about the Hildibrand stuff in pre-A Realm Reborn, as in the stuff in 1.0, Hildibrand ended up doing a few ridiculous quest lines in the original one, found a weapon, which you've seen him wielding,
yes,
that he ended up activating a bunch of gunpowder in a pumpkin patch, which launched him straight into Dalamud. He ended up stuck in a stasis field in Dalamud when it fell and blew the fuck up.
Yes, this is the reason why he starts in the post-ARR 2 quest dead.
Supposedly dead. Turns out he got a bonk on his head, which made him forget who he was, and he was rescued by a bunch of zombies.
Who are so enthralled by his charisma, they basically agreed to follow him and even pose and dress like him.
They have become the Gentle Dead Men.
That sounds like it should be a hippie band, and yet it is not.
It is not, but that is what they are called. They are the Gentle Dead Men.
So you go ahead, you investigate them, and in doing so, you help Hildibrand recover his memories.
Via bombs,
because apparently concussive force is the best way to recover from concussive force. And you go ahead and bring him back to his senses, and which upon he begins continuing his investigative career with Nashu.
Yes.
And you accompany him across varying hijinks and adventures.
Yes.
Also, at this time, we get introduced to a gaggle of, at least with the first of his many side characters, which is Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie, the reporter for the Mithril Eye, as well as the inspector from Ishgard, Briardian.
Briardian? Is that how it's actually pronounced in later games?
Briardian.
I've always called him Briarden.
It's D-I-E-N.
I know, but, weird pronunciations in fantasy. We saw that we did a quest in which this name is spelled Rioalle, is called Wash? Weil? I think it's pronounced Weil because I know it's Gaelic, so it's fucked up beyond belief.
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of those weird things where the pronunciation is messed up. I call him Briarden just because it's easier. Briardian is probably correct too, but
tomato. Regardless, he is a posh, pompous, stick-up-his-ass Elizin as our Mostar.
If Hildibrand is our hapless Sherlock Holmes, then this is our great inspector from Scotland Yard.
Yes.
I forget what his name is. He's not Moriarty, but he is the inspector from the authorities, which is basically Briardian is actually an official investigator, whereas Hildibrand comes off as sort of a
bumbling oaf.
Lucky bumbling oaf, as his various happenstances will soon be regaled.
Yes.
But at least as far as his start, it's very obvious that despite his almost haphazard attempts to help people, his heart is genuinely in the right place.
Oh yeah, He's a himbo with a heart of gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that definitely applies to all three of those aspects. Regardless, Briardian, Nashu, Hildibrand, and Ellie are led through an overarching story of the Masked Phantom, who is a gentleman thief, stealing various artifacts from famous people. And in between, there are mini arcs in which a lesser issue is getting resolved, almost layer within layer.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the first set of adventures, which involves getting a priceless...
The Treaty...
base. Oh, the Treaty Blade, yes.
The Treaty Blade. But before we deal with the Treaty Blade, we have to deal with the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Well, okay, so I did have... Everyone does get an encounter with Godbert during ARR. When you're in the Bronze Springs camp.
Yeah.
You do come across him getting some much-needed R&R, and you have to, as becomes tradition in Hildibrand quests, oil him down.
Yes.
Vigorously so. And so you do that with Godbert the first time without really knowing who he is. And then you get to actually see him in the Hildibrand questline. And I think this is one of the few things I was exposed to before I started FF14, because I remember you showing me this clip in which he hunts... Basically, they need to reproduce
a vase
that was destroyed by happenstance. And in doing so, Hildibrand knows my dad is probably the only one who has the skill necessary to reproduce it.
Yes.
And in doing so, does find his father...
By doing a completely weird jig.
Well, the Mandervile Mambo.
Yeah.
But more importantly... The Manderville Mambo reminds Godbert, that's right, you ran away from home and scared your mother. And so, fearing Daddy's wrath, Hildibrand runs away, only to be hunted down National Geographic style, with a sprint scene that can only be described as Looney Tunes-esque.
Oh yeah, Godbert is fucking flash-stepping.
Not flash-stepping, he is literally hunting this man down like the Flash, tackles him, grabs him in a bear hug, proceeds to German suplex him, and Hildibrand has the expression of a man being brought to eternal climax.
Oh, yeah.
Before a massive explosion from getting suplexed that fucking hard. Even Brock Lesnar would be astounded by his madness.
Oh yeah.
And he's not even a combat class.
No, Godbert is a fucking goldsmith.
He is a goldsmith of the highest caliber, and manages to produce feats even gods would be pressed to be able to accomplish.
By the way, he has his own limit break.
Why am I not fucking surprised? Also, just as on a brief tangent, in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers parody that I've seen, Godbert is Zordon. Let that haunt your dreams for a while. So anyway, but
while we were also getting the vase, we also ran into another member of the cast of Chucklefucks.
Greg,
a.k.a. Gilgamesh.
So Gilgamesh makes his... let me ask you, because I have one of my FF blind spots is 6, and I know Gilgamesh plays a big part in 6.
No, it's 5.
Oh, it's 5. Okay.
5 is Battle on the Big Bridge.
Either way, I know those are that's in my blind spot. Was he as much of a joke there as he is now?
Yes.
Okay, so then it's par for the course.
He was a fucking chucklefuck then too. He always made his wily escapes.
So then it par for the course.
Yes.
So Gilgamesh returns appropriately in this storyline as a rival to Hildibrand.
Not only the Hildibrand, but our main character.
Yes.
Who got roped into this bullshit.
As protagonists often do.
And I will tell you right now, as the series goes on with these Hildibrand adventures, they get progressed. The main character steadily and more steadily becomes attuned to the Looney Tunes antics.
Oh, good lord.
Yes. I believe it's actually come to a climax in Endwalker.
So I know for a fact that in the second arc of the Hildibrand questline, one of the things that kind of gets shown about Hildibrand's character is his attentiveness to the care of people. And that scene where the owner of the Treaty Blade is this typical Karen-esque WASP woman who looks like she could give no fucks about her kid, even though she basically sends her kid on dangerous missions to go retrieve said priceless heirlooms of art.
Yeah, who then immediately tightens her lip when Godbert shows up saying, "You don't like my new work?"
Which, this is the point at which everyone finds out that Hildibrand is Hildibrand Mandervile, who is
Hildibrand, Helidor, Maximillian, Manderville.
Who is one, Godbert is a member of the Syndicate.
Yes.
And also runs the Golden Saucer.
Yes.
Which would make Hildibrand his heir.
Yes.
However, Hildibrand expressly refuses going into the family business on the sole basis of, it is my dream to become an investigator, a gentleman investigator.
Yes. An investigator extraordinaire.
Yes, as much as his father would rather see him work the finer points of goldsmithing.
Yes.
And it's here we get to see at least some of Hildibrand's more down-to-earth qualities, despite his penchant for getting blown up and beaten on a regular basis.
Man is durable.
Incredibly durable. We also get to see Rei'tan is his direct counterpoint, so while Hildibrand often goes down the wrong path, Rei'tan usually does the rational thing, and he's usually much closer to the truth, or at least progresses the plot in a more sensical way.
Regardless, somehow both of them end up getting hoodwinked, or end up solving the problem together.
Yes, in this case, the Phantom Thief slips through under their noses by appearing as the annoying white woman, literally taking the blade from under their noses and then abscraying with it.
Yeah, Thief of 1,000 Faces.
Which leads to the next chapter, which is literally a beach episode.
Yeah, although before that happens, we do end up having a battle with Greg.
Yes, so Gilgamesh does take the possession of the Treaty Blade at one point, which leads to one battle with him, and it's not the first time we will fight him, and I don't suspect the last.
Yeah, because he sees the weapon that Hildibrand is carrying and mistakes it, or I believe he thinks that it's his own spear.
Yes.
And they wrestle over it in a... I forget what it's called.
So here's the thing, is that when you first meet Gilgamesh, he admits that his weapon was stolen, and he was trying to find it. Hildibrand, by happenstance, finds it later, off-screen, and just carries it on him for the time being, even though he, as a gentleman, abhors violence, which is a key point to remember for later.
Yeah. By the way, that's the same weapon that he used to get launched into Dalamud.
Right. So, in doing so, this causes the blood feud between him and Greg. That Greg is trying to get his weapon back from Hildibrand, who erroneously believes it's his own weapon. And so, in doing so, he takes the Treaty Blade, and he's, of course, still doing his I am a monk who will own 1,000 blades shtick.
Yes.
And so, that's at least where that conflict becomes. And you do fight him on Battle of Big Bridge with the Final Fantasy XIV remake. Although it's by himself for this time.
Yes.
As part of also his quest, he doesn't have Enkidu either.
Right.
And
the only thing he has is a chicken, which he named Enkidu and painted green.
Yes. And although the chicken doesn't really do much, you can get it as a pet.
Yes.
Anyway, going to... One of the other things that I keep forgetting to mention is the production value put into the Hildibrand questline, because you told me this specifically. The Hildibrand questline was the designer's way of testing out facial expressions.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty much the case.
And you can see that with Hildibrand in fucking spades. Because every time he gets blown up or violently hurts, he makes the stupidest fucking grin I've ever seen.
It's basically like, oh shit.
No, it's not even, oh shit. Again, the man is being brought to 1,000 climaxes. Like, that is how he looks. He has never felt 1,000 years of death in the most pleasurable way possible.
God, I love this series.
But yeah. And then every time you close an episode, it has its own anime ending arc where it shows you a preview of what the next chapter is, because
these were patch quests.
So you would unlock one bit at a time. And then by the time you were ready for the next expansion, the quest would end. Yes. Or the arc would end. And it's like a mini anime series in and of itself.
Yeah, because every expansion, with the exception of Shadowbringers, has a Hildibrand storyline. And technically, the Endwalker one starts off with stuff from Shadowbringers, which is really funny.
So, going into the third episode, I'm going to call it, of Hildibrand's adventures.
Act 3, or as I like to call it, The Wedding and the Mandragoras.
Right, because you go to Costa del Sol to stop the Master Thief's next plot, which is he's going to kidnap the daughter of a famous merchant.
Or as he calls it, the Maiden's Virtue.
Right, so everyone thinks, that he's going to go kidnap and deflower some guy's daughter, because why the fuck not?
Yeah. So
they go ahead and you get to Costa del Sol. You go ahead and integrate yourself into the investigative party. And in doing so, one of the best sequences in that episode occurs, in which the party has to go investigate for clues on the beach as well as speak with Rei'tan, who has basically gone off and is returning back from his own personal investigation. Nashu left her bombs next to a supply of vegetables that was left for the party. And so she neglectfully leaves them there before Rei'tan shows up. Hildibrand and Nashu have to hide. You and Ellie are basically left standing at the beach.
Yeah, and trying to convince him to get away from it.
Ellie tries to convince Rei'tan to come off the beach, look, it's getting cold, we should go talk somewhere warmer. And so Rei'tan notices a piece of driftwood, says, "Oh, we can just stay here, I'll start a fire for us."
Yeah.
Which, again, surrounded by bombs.
Yeah.
So, in doing so, he goes ahead and starts up the fire, and everyone's getting nervous. And then Nashu sneezes, causing her notes from earlier to dissipate into the air, which she was supposed to be taking notes of everything that Mandervile said, but she only got clips down, which, because that's all was written, gets misinterpreted by Rei'tan
as a death threat.
As a death threat against him, which, lo and behold, comes true when
he flails back, throws up the torch,
and accidentally ignites it, only for Ellie to push him out of the way of harm's way, and Manderville, in slow motion, to catch the torch with his head,
which stands perfectly straight up,
until Nashu sneezes, it knocks over,
and the orgasm grin again.
The explosion occurs. But this notably endears Rei'tan to Ellie, and causes a bit of a romance arc to begin to flourish.
Yes.
Regardless to say, the rest of the arc kind of goes down, I would say, abnormally. There's a whole side quest in this one about a set of mandragoras called the Royal Mandragora Family, who are basically imagine PETA but for vegetables.
Yeah.
And PETA is run by sentient plants. And that's what basically the Mandragora royal family are. You have to go fight them to recover the vegetables that were destroyed as a result of this bomb explosion. And lo and behold, they come back seeking vengeance later on. The adventure party also finds out that the Thief of a Thousand Faces has been using glamours to go ahead and disguise himself. And that they have to be wary for someone who is close to the wedding party in order to find out their identity.
They also find out that he has hurt his hand in a way, so he's been wearing gloves.
Mm-hmm. Which they managed to go ahead and narrow it down to the point that they have to stop him at the wedding day. And so what happens? Does Hildibrand dress himself up as the bride?
Yes.
In order to lure him out. And Hildibrand basically deduces that it must be the groom who is going to be the new disguise, much to the chagrin of everyone else in the party, and basically castigate Hildibrand for even thinking such a thing. Except he was right!
He was fucking right! Because he immediately spots the Maiden's Virtue in the crowd, hidden as a commoner.
Right.
Catches her, steals the necklace that was the actual treasure that he wanted.
Which is also called the Maiden's Virtue, which the party had completely forgotten by happenstance.
Which they did not know.
They didn't know, but had they thought about it, they would have realized it, but that was a detail they overlooked. Nonetheless, the Phantom Thief gets away, a new target is named, and the parties continue to go ahead and chase after one another.
I should mention that the Mandragoras show up again to cause havoc during the wedding, but when they see Hildibrand in the wedding dress, and he makes a lovey-dovey face at them saying, "You love me, you really love me,"
they fuck off.
Yeah. Also, rip for the onion guy, because he got hit with the card.
Yes. Also, this is sort of the point where I posted this theory to Rei, in that Hildibrand is our Neville Longbottom.
Oh?
So, that analogy is in the sense that technically, because of his involvement in Dalamud dropping, and with certain other events, at least his interpretations thereof, it's my crack theory is that Hildibrand is a warrior of light who does have access to the Echo, but because of his himbo-ness, he misinterprets the visions he gets. Because he does have his own pauses, and while he does not have the my head seizures that the warrior of light makes, he does seem to at least try to interpret them, and this leads him to a on the right path if in the wrong direction type vibe.
I mean, that is a very convincing theory, and
it would also explain why the fuck he's able to survive such bullshit.
Oh, I'm just going to tell you right now, there's a reason why he's so durable, and that's answered in the Endwalker Mandervile lines.
Okay.
I'm just going to say this. They canonized his durability.
I'm still thinking that he's a warrior of light, so until we get there, just let me have my dreams, damn it.
Okay, you can have your dream. Next up, we have Ultros and the Colosseum.
Okay, and this one probably goes... I think, compared to 5, I think this is where this hits the peak for me in terms of the absolute bullshit of this quest, in terms of the absolute nonsensical stunts that occur.
Oh, like the fact that we find out that Hildibrand probably has points in Monk?
Yes, we know for a fact that he brags about that in 3, and then we go ahead and we later find out, no, there's an entire order which is devoted to him, and they call the Mantravillians.
Yes.
And we literally meet them, and so that throwaway line is actually legit.
Yeah.
So, the gimmick here is that a prize, I forget what the item, the treasure...
It's a ring, I believe.
Yeah, but I think it's like the Ring of Wisdom or something like that.
I don't remember what it's called.
One of the next target is the prize for the winning of the next tournament at Ul'dah. And so you have to go so the party basically, after finding out that certain competitors have been taking tournament injuries and getting lost, they enter themselves in order to go ahead and find out the root of the conspiracy. Top of the list is a Almegan refugee gladiatrix named Aquila.
I believe that's her name.
Yes. And so she goes ahead and is considered primary suspect. But there's also the fact that there is a very familiar face from FF5 as well. Ulthros makes an appearance as well.
That's actually from 6.
From 6. Okay, so it's it's in the blind spot.
It's in your blind spot. Yeah.
But Ulthros makes an appearance. He is said to be a reject from the Coco Busey family, basically the Thaumaturgist Guild's experiments. And although he was supposed to be put to death, he basically begged for his life, and the present Colosseum owner takes pity on him, hires him basically as a receptionist. He is as pervy as ever, including one very weird I would say, sequence-breaking hit on. He hits on a certain blonde during this arc in which we're explained how much of a lecher he is. That kind of makes me wonder that they left a loophole open in that, but I'm not going to talk about that until later.
Oh, you mean the one blonde pigtailed character that he hits on? Oh, it's supposed to tease you to who that was.
I know. That's what I mean. It feels like that should be it feels like that's a plot hole, because what we see that character now and what happens later do not mix. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, she stomps around and gets huffy. And
yeah, but we'll get to that later. Needless to say, Aquila and Ulthros look suspicious as fuck. They are sus. We know one of them vented. And so that's basically where the party is at. Ulthros really ups the comedy game because he tries to throw you and Manderville under the bus, only for the things to backfire on him.
Let's see, first he tries to blow them up.
Which Hildibrand notices the bomb, thinks it's Nashu's, chucks it, and it ends up detonating on him.
Yes. He then creates a pitfall trap to capture the Warrior of Light, which Hildibrand just falls right into.
Takes it, doesn't even flinch, and then he falls into the other one that he set up.
Yeah.
And then on the third one, he thinks that he's safe because no one notices him except for, he presumes, Greg, only for Greg to fuck off And then now he's left with Godbird Hildibrand,
Yes.
who looks at him and says, "You will make an excellent inspiration for my next piece."
Yes. The undulations of the quivering sea. I found my inspiration!
And I have never seen a land octopus move faster, even in Elden Ring.
Yeah. But yeah.
Nonetheless, it's eventually revealed that the conspiracy is that Aquila is purposely rigging fights with Ulthros' help, using Ulthros and a third failed subject called Typhon.
Yes.
To basically enhance her Tempest Blade to bullshit levels of power, and basically fixing the fights that way.
Yeah, basically he gets a cut or whatever.
Yeah, he's getting a cut from this.
Of course, Ultros wants a little bit more. That's something.
Right, but he's not getting it. Needless to say, the party finds out that the source of this power is Typhon's allergy to mushrooms.
Yes.
A particular mushroom brand, which apparently Hildibrand is incredibly in tune with.
And ends up replacing his mushrooms with cooked versions, glazed in a savory sauce, which do not trigger the allergy because they're not so stinky anymore.
Right. Which then exposes the ruse, and although Aquila no longer participates in the fight, the tournament master basically rearranges it so that way it's you and a party of 4 versus...
It's you and a party of 8.
Oh, you and a party of 8, that's right. This is when you start getting into full party fights. You and a party of 8 versus Ulthros and Typhon as a doubleheader.
And that fight's kind of interesting. Ultros will turn you into kappas, which are annoying as all fuck, and Typhon will blow you out of the arena for the most part.
Yeah, I've only ever had problems with Typhon. I've never been given the kappa treatment.
Yeah, well, as DPS, I ended up getting the kappa treatment more often than not, and it's always so fucking frustrating.
But you managed to go ahead, win the tournament, and at the reward ceremony, not only is the original prize that you were supposed to get a fake, but you find out in the most spectacular fashion as the Thief of 1,000 Masks makes his appearance and attempts to basically use Typhos and Ulfon to blow the ring up to him.
Yeah.
This works up until the point at which
Hildibrand and his dad.
Hildibrand and his dad. Godbird grabs Hildibrand by the ankles and tornado spins him Irish giant swing style to build up enough speed to toss his son up into the air and attempt to intercept the ring.
That does not work. Also, somehow in this mix, Gilgamesh appears.
He shows up, overshoots the mark, and he gets launched out of Ul'dah.
Well, he gets launched into the air and into the Ul'dah alleyways, where the Manderviles find him and discuss for several hours
what the fuck to do with him.
Yes.
Needless to say, he gets away again, but...
It turns out that the real prize wasn't the ring, but the key to the safe.
Which had another prize, which is what the thief really wanted.
Yes. And then the
final calling card not only issues the 4th theft target, but then also issues a death threat upon the nation of Ul'dah itself.
Yes.
And so, by the final conclusion, it's sort of... I'm trying to remember what the 4th object is, because it's stolen so quickly.
I believe it's a pair of earrings.
It's a pair of earrings, but ultimately what the most of the time is spent on is what is the thief's motive. It's more than just simple thievery. It's eventually determined that the objects he's been stealing were basically sacred treasures
from Belladia.
From Belladia, which is the predecessor empire to Ul'dah. And in doing so, recover the ancient blood feud between Silda and Belladia, which was the sister city the sister empire that was wiped out in order for Belladia to become Ul'dah.
No, it was Sildi. Sildi became Ul'dah. Okay. Belladia was the sister city that got destroyed in a zombie apocalypse, basically.
Right, which was done by Sildia alchemists.
Yes.
Which, consequently, is the reason why zombies were coming back, because it was basically a small-scale prototype of this plague.
Yes.
And so this is why zombies were coming back. It is eventually determined that there was an insider amongst the investigative party who was disguising themselves and feeding information to the thief, which turned out to be Ellie and her twin sister Sylvia.
Yes.
Sylvie and Ellie were trading places, so that way when one needed to be there, the other one could be as the thief and vice versa. So it basically allowed for a feeding of information.
Yeah, and the only reason this was found out is because Sylvie tried to disguise herself as Nashu and got too flustered when Hildibrand irritated her too much.
Yes. In her attempt to basically scar Hildibrand for life,
to get him out of...
Well, what she wanted to do was she wanted to kill one of her last targets, which was a member of the Sultan Sworn, who has one of the few last ties to Sildar.
Yeah. So
she attempts to poison this member of the Sultan Sworn, only for Hildibrand to intervene, take the blow for himself, and he gets toxically poisoned.
Basically, he was hit with zombie powder and was going to become one of the undead.
For reals.
For reals.
Only for, out of the blue, not only Godbert to not intervene, but his mom, Julian, to intervene.
Yeah, Godbert's wife, Julian Mandervile. Do not ask her about her age.
Julian, if you thought everything that we talked about Godbert Manderville was absolute bonkers, Godbert fears Julian like the plague.
Oh, yeah.
This is a man who is thoroughly henpecked despite his macho attitude.
Oh yeah. When Gilgamesh tries to intervene yet again, as he does in every chapter of this,
he gets frying panned into the wall.
And he's like, "Yes, ma'am, I'll help you now."
She also knocks out Sylvie with a frying pan with the force of an Akuma raging demon.
Yes. She just literally slides in, bonk, and she's down.
Yes. The fact that she does not splatter her guts against the wall is also a miracle in and of itself.
Oh, she restrained herself. You know that.
Yes. Also, so this is the part where I say, because one of the girls who is hit up by Ultros is Julian, although you don't know it at the time.
No.
And so, given the nature of the behaviors, it's very interesting to see these two sides of Julian, which is why I said it seems like a plot hole. I presume that there's going to be an explanation down the road.
No, there is not.
Okay, then I retain my original statement of it being a plot hole because she could otherwise plaster Ultros into the ground.
I mean, she is still a member of the Syndicate. She probably doesn't want to cause a ruckus in the middle of town.
Which is not actually explained. She's married to Godbert, but Godbert is the actual one on the table. She's just family. But there are two things that I find interesting. One is the fact that her dress is that of, not Ishgardian,
but
Stormblood.
It's like very Asian inspired, like Kugane and Hingashi.
Very Hingashian. So on the one hand, it definitely comes off like she's a bit of a foreigner, which first off means Hildibrand qualifies for having the hot Asian wife trope. And then secondly, it also would explain some of her more meek nature, as she only really does go into Satsui no Hado mode when her own son's life is threatened.
Yeah, I'm reading the Encyclopedia Eorzea at the moment, and apparently it says, Julian supports her husband in many ways, and it's largely thanks to her own aptitude that Godbert has a seat on the Syndicate.
So, but she herself admits to not being the one in there, so she might be more playing...
Well, I mean, she is part of Manderville and Manderville.
Right, but she would be more of the... It's sort of like she works from the shadows, not being the face.
Mm-hmm.
Also, much like Godbert, who is solely a goldsmith, she is a culinarian.
Yeah.
The woman can make miracles with iron skillets that Gordon Ramsay can only dream of.
She literally creates an antidote to the zombie powder for Hildibrand.
Yes. And so, eventually, you come across Ellie, who explains her Belladia heritage and why she wants revenge on Ulda and her entire machination to do so, even breaking poor Briardian's heart.
Yes.
And so they go ahead, and it looks like there is a massive fucking production put into fighting the zombie horde. Nashu throwing bombs, Briardian fighting, and even Godbert literally going even more God Super Saiyan than Smash Brothers with the hammer power up.
Oh yeah, just giant hammer and smack.
Absolute absurdity.
That's his limit break, by the way.
Okay, that makes sense. Needless to say, there's too many zombies to be stopped, except for the fact that Hildibrand does come back, gets them under control with his massive charisma.
Because he is the leader. He is Zombiebrand.
Yes. And so Now, there's one other thing that I've neglected to mention, and it's the other reason why Hildibrand can be considered a warrior of light, or rather, a gentleman of light.
Agreed.
Because Hildibrand, there is a prophecy which says that in Ulda's darkest hour, 4 warriors of light will arrive to go ahead. The typical Final Fantasy XIV joke.
The 4 treasures will arrive and create a blade of light to banish the darkness.
Correct. And so Hildibrand technically goes ahead and fulfills that condition. Not now, but he at least inspires enough people to believe that he can qualify.
Yes.
And so the treasures are retrieved except for the Peace Blade, which...
The Treaty Blade.
The Treaty Blade, which Gilgamesh immediately swipes, and reveals that, believe it or not, thanks to Julian's intervention of making him go grab a bunch of crystals to go prepare the antidote, ends up actually allowing Gilgamesh to summon Enkidu.
A primal version of Enkidu.
So your final battle in the Manderville questline is a battle against Greg at full power with Enkidu in Phase 1, and in Phase 2 he goes into his full
multi-armed
Asura mode for Phase 2. At the end of this fight, he manages to beg for mercy, escape away, but with Hildibrand's help, you manage to recover the Treaty Blade. And at the end, the Belladia sisters, Ellie and Sylvie, repeat again, technically a warrior of light has to have all 4 of these treasures in order to form a blade of light that will go ahead and pierce the darkness. And specifically, make people happy.
Yes.
And throughout the quest line where you're getting the ingredients for the holy water, for the antidote, you come across all the characters from before that Hildibrand, through his antics, have basically shown them the right way to do things, and in doing so help assist you in getting the necessary items to save his life.
He got the mother and child to be more close together.
He went ahead and gave the daughter of the merchant the chance to live her own life, and even gave the gladiatrix Aquila a chance to start over with a fresh reputation.
Yes.
And in doing so, each of these characters help you out in getting an antidote item, which later goes to save Hildibrand. And as Hildibrand holds the Treaty Blade and sticks it into the ground, the 4 treasures begin to react to him, and a blade of light is generated,
which launches him completely skyward bound,
much to the chagrin of everyone present.
Mm-hmm.
And completely baffling the Belladia sisters because it realizes, holy shit, this guy is basically a warrior of lights. Maybe? The treasures seem confused by Hildibrand wielding them, but he qualifies.
Hey, the blade activated.
So
the man's a gentleman of light for what it's worth.
So Hildibrand is a gentleman of light. Does he have access to the Echo? Maybe. You know, we won't really find out until the next series.
Yeah, the next one's not going to happen till the end of Heaven's Ward, and I'm going to advise you not do that until the end of 3.3.
3.3.
Which is the end of the Dragonsong War.
Okay.
But, first off, what is your overall thoughts on Hildibrand? The entire
thing needs to be animated and portrayed to a live studio audience because it is absolutely fucking ridiculous. My biggest regret, because again this is 2.0, and even though it goes up to 2.55, no one in this entire series has voice acting, which is the biggest shame.
Yeah, that's the problem with the Hildibrand stuff. None of it is voice acted. It's never voice acted.
It's never voice acted. But you can go ahead and read the character scripts, and you know exactly who everyone should be cast by. You can hear the voices in their heads.
You can hear the biggest himbo voice coming from Hildibrand.
Yes, bigger than Zach Brannigan. You can hear Mashu being the weak Velma-like character. You can hear Briardian snobbing. Julian, I'm not sure if this is just our canon or if this has just been universally decided, but we all know Julian comes from the South, from the good old South. Yeah. She's a good old Georgia girl.
By the way, and I've heard so many people voice Godbert as Macho Man Randy Savage.
I can see that, but at least to me, he's more of a Master Roshi type deal. kind of like a more.
He has the dots on his forehead.
Yeah, like a mix between Roshi and Iroh, I guess, if that's what I'm going with, because he does have some wise points. Ellie, I did code. I think when we were watching it together, I definitely made her like she's the sassy Latina girl who puts up with Mandervile's bullshit.
all right.
But yeah,
so what would you say was your favorite moment?
I mean, easily the best moments are anything in which the extreme gets turned up to 11. Godbird reuniting with his son. The whole bombs on the beach arc. The entire spectacle of Godbert and Hildibrand giant swinging up into the stratosphere. And I only expect it to get worse from there. Or should I say better?
Better.
It gets better from there.
Favorite character?
Favorite character? I mean, Hildibrand absolutely takes it. I think underrated Briardian's contributions. You need a straight man to completely no-sell everything that Hildibrand does, and it is essential to giving you a sense of grounding in this entire chaotic bullshit string of a quest line. Because there are too many places where without Briardian saying, "Hey, we have a job to do," completely brings you back down and makes you forget. Oh right, this is the fucking plot. This is the plot. We have plot to do. We're not just faffing about.
Yeah.
And so Briardian is essential to sort of keeping you grounded. And his interactions with Hildibrand are important to making sure, okay, we're going to go ahead and we still have a story to tell here.
Right. In the case of every future Hildibrand episode, there always is going to be a straight man added to the party.
Okay.
So look forward to...
Because it kind of seemed like at the end of the quest arc, because, again, Briardian forgives Ellie for everything that she did.
And says that once you get out of jail, let's hook up.
Yes, and literally says, "I'll wait for you." So we kind of figure that he's not going to show up in the next series.
Right.
And this is kind of it's one of those, I would equate it closer to Trigun or maybe Cowboy Bebop, in which it's self-contained arcs, but you will only focus on certain characters. So the Manderviles are going to be our main focus here, with other supporting cast coming in every season.
Right. Which
is what at least it appears to be. As far as I would say as far as the storyline goes, it's a very much needed sense of levity, because I think with ARR being much of a, we are sorry we fucked this up, we are going to do better, there's very much a sense of the game taking itself too seriously with its main quest line, and the idea that we have to go ahead and be serious all the time. There are throwaway lines, or there's gags here and there, but they are not usually played for laughs. They're usually played for badass moments.
Badass moments or snark.
Not really gut-busting, by God, they actually did that.
Yeah.
So it was a much-needed sense of levity, and the fact that it's absent from Shadowbringers, I think, is appropriate given by what I've been sensing.
Yes. So Shadowbringers is very dark.
Yes, and I think rather than try and let's liven it up a little. No, we're going to keep you there, and we'll get you out of it on the next one.
Yes.
Which I think is at least the plan there.
Yeah, and basically, in Endwalker is basically this is the end of this arc. We're starting a new arc
the next time around.
Yeah, and so that's why we can bring back Hildibrand and have a laugh.
Right. Now, I did go back and rewatch the entirety of the arc again in anticipation, because this is a mystery story. And the thing about mystery stories is on the second watch, you should be able to see where the things work out. And the absences where Ellie is not in the plot definitely coincide with when the Thief of a Thousand Faces shows up, or would require the necessity for Sylvie to step in because Ellie is there with the rest of the party.
Right.
Creating this sense of deniability. And so there are some things where it's at least there are points where Ellie doesn't believe that Hildibrand isn't on point, and then there's other plans where oh, we have to get rid of this fucker because he's going to ruin everything.
Yeah.
So at the very least, it very much shows Ellie is at least aware of how competent Hildibrand is, and at least is in the sense of, okay, what was once kind of a joke is now a problem, and we're going to have to take care of him. I think it still retains a good chunk of the mystery and the intrigue. Again, there's a lot more emphasis on the side characters than this overarching mystery at the start. if they keep that up, I think it becomes it will still be entertaining. But I'm fairly certain there are some people out there who are much more into Law and Order types, or the, like, say, Monk or Columbo, where it's like, no, we want the entire thing to just be about this. Let's actually see him do investigative work, not just, faffing about. And there's always, we said before, there's always, like, one or two battles here and there where it, like, tests you with different things.
Yeah. I will say, the case is not always a mystery man of 1,000 faces.
Mm-hmm.
Next expansion, I'm not going to say much. It's more to do with a case of amnesia.
Okay.
And
so something akin to, like, say, Looker's arc from X and Y, where he helps out Aunt Emma.
Yeah. And then the one after that is more of a case of trying to apprehend a burglar.
Okay.
That like a Robin Hood-like character.
Okay. So it would be more of a Sherlock Holmes meets Arsène Lupin.
Yeah.
Because that's also another common one that's seen. So I think it does play with those tropes, but I'm hoping that we still have those. Every single patch quest has its own arc as well.
Yeah. And I will say this, the current one is out of this world.
I mean, I would imagine so. Let me see. Hildibrand as a design, absolutely amazing character work, at least in his outfit, in the way that he reacts. Obviously, they took the most pleasure in animating his facial expressions.
Oh, yes.
And I only imagine it's going to get better from here.
Oh, yeah. The animation work, you actually start to see in the base game, in the main campaign, the expressions and stuff start to get more lively, more expressive.
Now, there are some points, let's be honest, where the expressions that are being made, it looks like they are 1 or 2 frames more. Like, if you played it a little bit more, it would be a debug menu. They're clearly, pushing, okay, we're going super crazy for the expressions.
Oh, yeah, it's basically one step away from a fucking Gary's mod.
Yeah. So I would say that they at least do that. The outfit that he wears is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and of course you get your own version. You can also, I believe, get a version of it that's completely tattered.
Nice.
Yeah, you can get a tattered version just for the cosplay action.
Right, for the cosplay action. Nashu does a fairly decent job as the bumbling sidekick. She definitely has her own sense of humor, but I do think that there were times that she basically has 2 jokes. She goes between explosives happy, or she sleeps and sneezes a lot.
Yes.
Which, I'm hoping that we get a little bit more with her, because the main characterization you get for her is that she was so inspired by Hildibrand, she basically follows him wherever he goes. But aside of him being the Watson to a Sherlock Holmes, we don't actually get much for her right now.
I think her actual backstory in 1.0 is actually really sad.
Okay.
I don't remember the whole story, but I think she was, in servitude, practically, to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And Hildibrand basically freed her from that.
Okay.
So, and that's why she dotes on him like a lost puppy, or a lost kitty in this case.
Okay. I think that either a rehash of that, like a flashback sequence, or maybe some re-exploration into her would be nice. But I think that there's a lot of potential in Nashu that's not being explored enough.
Yes. So, you aren't really going to see Briardian again unless you decide to do a side quest in Ishgard,
Okay.
where you can get a glasses emote.
Oh yes, because the single finger push-up frame is absolutely essential for every single weeb character who wears glasses. So I'm going to obviously get it.
Yeah, I don't remember. I haven't done that quest line, so you're free to do that and tell me what you think of it.
Okay. Briardian fits his role perfectly. As I said before, he is the straight man. Inspector Lestrade. Inspector Lestrade is the character I was thinking of for Sherlock Holmes.
Ah.
So he fits the Inspector Lestrade role. He basically is the straight man. He's challenging all of Hildibrand's theories. In this case, because Hildibrand is the bumbling buffoon, he has to be the competent one. And yet, he's the one who often gets chewed out because it ends up being Hildibrand's win. He's actually a fairly competent character. He's shown to be he can beat Hildibrand in a fight.
Yeah.
Although Hildibrand also admits that he is a pacifist in nature. And so, whether or not he can unlock his inner Mandervile, yet to be determined. He does seem to be stick up his ass type that gets, he's the straight man. He serves his job well. Surprisingly complex, given his fallout with Ellie and his decision to stand by her once she gets out. Whether that comes to anything, I doubt it. But hey, you have it's a long expanding series for a reason. They could always just go ahead and show them having the wedding in the new world for all we know.
Yeah.
It's been long enough.
I mean, technically, despite it actually being 10 years in the real world, I think up until Endwalker, I think it's only been a couple of months in game.
That's nuts.
I know, it's fucking nuts.
But yeah, so Brian does his job well. Greg. What is there to say about Greg? Greg is kind of an interesting middle ground between Hildibrand and Brian in that he tries to be serious because he's Gilgamesh, but then you know that it's going to fall flat and he's just going to go ahead and make a complete fool of himself. And the chase sequences that he has with Hildibrand are absolutely hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's like the tug of war.
Of war or chasing him around the Coliseum for his spear. Like, they obviously know Gilgamesh's reputation with the fandom, and they're not afraid to go ahead and use it.
Yeah. Like, they know he's a bit of a chuckle fuck.
Yes, and so at least I'm looking forward to the next time we see him. It's very clear that we're going to get him back in the future.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and say it now. You're not going to see him in Heaven's Ward.
Okay.
He does come back in Stormblood.
Okay, does he show up in Endwalker?
No.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, no, I haven't seen him in Endwalker.
Okay, so we probably won't see him again maybe until Dawn Trail.
Yeah,
maybe.
because we are getting inconceivably more Hildibrand adventures from that.
Of course we are.
I love how every expansion is called Hildibrand Adventures, more Hildibrand Adventures, even more Hildibrand Adventures.
Astoundingly more
Hildibrand Adventures, inconceivably more Hildibrand Adventures.
Okay.
I love how it just keeps going. It keeps going like, how the hell is this still going on?
So that's their solution to doing instead of like a season 1, like a sensible person would.
Yeah,
because this is not a sensible series.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ellie is a very interesting character, and again, I highly encourage you, once you've played it through once, go back and just watch the entire series as a movie, or do New Game Plus if you really want to play through it all at your own pace. And just go look to see where the cuts and the lineups are for where Ellie steps in and out, as well as her overall. She, again, kind of serves as a straight man, kind of undercutting Nashu and Hildibrand's wildness. But you also get to see the tragic nature of her struggles. And I think it also, again, plays into the Almigo issues that the game is throwing you as one of the main plot points, which I hope we're getting close to a resolution to that, because we've been definitely getting a lot of hints of the Almigan plight.
Yeah, Alamigo, that stuff doesn't happen till Stormblood.
Okay, so not this expansion, the next one.
Right.
Okay, because I remember I'm playing Monk, so a part of my gimmick was that, yeah, I had to go ahead and deal with my Monk trainer, who is an Alamigan refugee and wants to go ahead and is part of the aggressive faction that wants to go against the Garligan Empire. Yeah,
because apparently for a long time in Alamigan history, the monks actually ran the country.
Right. It serves as your Wu Fei, your... I'm trying to remember what the monk nation in 4 was called. But basically, it's
Fabul.
Fabul. It's basically the Wu Fei, the Fabul analog in 14.
Bingo.
And that's where that's going to come in. This is your Tibet.
Yeah.
Godbert. Oh man, I can see why Godbert has so much OP-ness to him, because you cannot have a series and not have some absolute bullshit feats of strength occur.
Yeah.
And basically Godbert does it in spades.
Kills a chimera with a single golden hammer.
Crafts an entire replica heirloom and then improves it.
Quote unquote improves.
Goes ahead and can, again, if you must watch one thing from the entirety of the arc, it has to be the chase sequence in which National Geographic style Godbert hunts down his son and takes him down via German suplex.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember, because it's not Yoshi P. It's Harada who once got in... Basically, he borrowed a famous professional wrestler's likeness to use as the basis of King. And even went as far as to get actually choked out by this pro wrestler for the sake of the experience.
Jesus.
Which is not difficult to do, but it's still horrifying because you are losing consciousness.
Oh boy.
And so while I don't know why Japan has a fixation on the German suplex, it does, and they continue to go ahead and have countless media where they do it well.
Yeah.
The last character, I think, is Julian, which...
We haven't seen much of her.
So, I have a fun fact. My, one of the players I play D&D with on Fridays has a cosplay account of Julian Mandervile.
Oh, really?
Yes. And he is nothing like the kind of person you would expect her to sound like, which is all the more hilarious. If it's not going to sound like Southern Belle, I would put his voice in there just for shits and giggles. But Julian obviously comes across as a very caring mother. She definitely dotes on her son a lot more, and I think she's the reason why she basically, like, pursue your dreams. Go out there and be free. And, like, doesn't give a shit about what Godbird says, because Mama knows best in this case. And I think at least... She kind of overly obsesses over Hildibrand's well-being for the most part. Well, her son literally got flown up into space, survived the crashing of Dalamud, and somehow managed to come back with only amnesia. I would be concerned about his well-being too if I were his mother.
I mean,
I would also be concerned about the type of people he hangs around with, because God, do we have an incredibly crazy cast of characters.
Oh, and it's only going to get crazier.
Oh, boy.
It is only going to get crazier. And again, I repeat, the main character starts to lose his sense of being sanity and being the straight guy in this group, because once he's met with the Manderviles once, you are forever changed.
Oh, boy. All right. All in all, definitely do the Hildibrand side quest. You have to see the bullshit they do. I cannot wait to see the next set of quests.
Yeah, also, I know there's a lot of people I know who just skip through the Hildibrand quest line, especially nowadays because the current Relic quest involves the Hildibrand quest line. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people who are just skipping through Hildibrand.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things. That was one of the few other things that I had found out, was that I think it was when Endwalker came out, was that in order to get the Relic weapons for Endwalker, you had to do the entirety of the Manderville quest line up to that point.
Yes.
And apparently, for some reason, that threw a lot of people off, because apparently they didn't want to do that, which is absolutely bizarre. I mean, I get it that there's some people who are like, no, I just want to grind. And, like, I guess that's fine, but I feel like it's a great disservice to not actually at least watch through them once.
Yeah, and I should give you context for some of the relic weapons in the game. To make certain relic weapons, like, I'm going to use Bozja's relic weapon as an example. Mm-hmm. You had to do specific fates in the open world multiple times to get, like, 30 of one sigil, 30 of another, and a 30 of another from different areas. Do multiple fates in order to get them. And then you could upgrade one weapon to the next level. And that's just for one level. The Anima relic weapons are considered the most crazy bullshit, where you had to fight specific enemies, collect specific items. The grind for an Anima relic weapon is absolutely nuts, and whoever's done that, I pray for your fucking sanity.
And so this is Yoshi P saying, oh, you're not going to do one of the greatest quest lines we've ever produced? Fuck off.
Pretty much, because what you do for this relic quest is tombstone grinding. Mm-hmm. It's just simple tombstone grinding.
Tombstone grinding, and you have done the prerequisite Manderville insight checks.
Yes.
Because it definitely feels like, the way you're telling me this, the Mandervilles are some kind of eldritch horror or spawn thereof.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Oh boy.
I mean, you're kind of wrong, but you're not wrong, but you're...
Let's move on to the Crystal Raids.
Yes, let's move on to the Crystal Tower Raids, which is the other part of this podcast I wanted to talk about. Because this part is mandatory for Shadowbringers.
So, I actually talked with another friend of mine, 80, who was explaining to me why that was the case. And the reason for that is because at a later point in the story, there is a character that you are going to meet again, and they say, we meet again. And then everyone who has not played through the CT arc is like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Which you would know if you played the CT questline. So rather than have this confusion occur every time a new player gets to that point, because everyone says, oh, just skip the CT line, you don't have to do it, they now have made it mandatory, so you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that it's not as bullshit as I thought it was going to be. I think we knocked it out in like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, the Crystal Tower raid is like the easiest raid. It's really straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I find the Nier raid to be the most insufferable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because of all the projectiles, because it literally is like playing the game Nier, because it has all those purple balls moving around.
Right.
And also every boss is a fucking HP sponge.
Oh boy. Now,
I think the one I dislike the most is the Evilise raid, specifically the Orbone Monastery.
Okay.
Basically because it's going to be a while before you get there. You basically fight Ultima.
Okay. Now, Ultima, you mean the Ultima weapon, or Ultima, the god from Evilise?
The god from Evilise.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Because they throw that... Ultima gets thrown around as often as fucking Crystal does, I swear.
Well, I'm just going to tell you right now, the Ultima Spell and Ultima the High Seraph, they're not so different, you and I.
Okay. But going back to the CT series, so... Let me see, having gone through it, let me see if I understand at least the highlights.
Okay.
This quest is basically finding out what the fuck this is and how it's connected to the Ascians.
Yeah.
And so we find out that...
Well, for starters, the Crystal Tower itself was built by the
Allagons, who are predecessor to modern society.
Yes, they were from, I believe, the Third Astral Era.
Yeah, and
approximately 5,000 years ago.
And we are in the 7th Umbral Era, if I'm not mistaken.
The 7th Astral Era now.
7th Astral Era, okay.
Because the Umbral Era was the Calamity 5 years ago.
Okay, so we're now in the 7th Astral Era, so that's how much of a difference it is. Now, as far as what secrets and told no one knows, the only way you can get in is you have to disable the elemental barrier in front of it.
Yes.
And even then, you don't really know the secrets unless you have someone who is of kin.
Basically, of Allagan royalty. Specifically, has the Allagan eyes.
Which are apparently having basically your own version of the Sharingan.
For the most part.
Which brings us to our Obito, which is in Grahatia.
Yeah, because we meet Grahatia, finally.
After some shenanigans involving getting some of the materials required to break in.
Yeah. And I believe at this time he's an archer?
Yes, he is an archer in this incarnation.
Uh-huh.
And so you meet Grahatia, who comes off as the incredibly annoying fan, but minus the incredibly annoying part.
Yeah.
He's just a fan, but he definitely fanboys over you. And basically, as far as I'm able to tell, they basically just used bosses from Final Fantasy III as set up for the Allagan Empire.
Yeah. And yeah, the entire Crystal Tower raid is basically a revamp of Final Fantasy III's greatest highlights, complete with the fact that they introduced Une and Doga, who are actually main characters who were... In Final Fantasy III, they were gifted specific powers alongside Xande. And in Xande's case, in Final Fantasy III, he was gifted the power of mortality. He was given the honor of dying, and he did not want to die. Mm-hmm. And so he tried to stop time, pretty much, in that game. In this game, Xande was the first Allagan Emperor, and he died. And then the alchemist Amon brought him back to life, and through that he became basically nihilistic.
An undead emperor. And began to realize life is meaningless, all things should be destroyed. Basically, imagine if the Roman Empire resurrected Julius Caesar, only for Julius Caesar to realize nothing matters.
Nothing matters, and I'm calling upon the powers of the void to end the world.
Right. So Doga and Une, or rather their clones that were created after the fact, the originals died, basically are sent to assist, not the Scions, the organization is called Noah, to assist in sealing off the tower. Correct?
Correct.
And so...
to discover its secrets and then see if those technologies can be used, or if it should be sealed off for good.
Right. And the conclusion at the end of it is, yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So the decision to make is to seal the tower, but it can only be done with someone of full royal blood. Okay. And while Grahatia does have some royal blood, he is not full blood.
No. To which Une and Doga give them their
Sharingan.
Yeah, they gave him the key, basically, to
Kingdom Hearts?
Oh, dale. But yeah, he basically gets full access to the Crystal Tower at the end and seals away the tower.
Until he can find a way to make it...
Until humanity is evolved enough to open the tower on its own, and he can serve as the steward to the technology.
So, it only takes us a few months to evolve, does it?
I'm not saying a damn thing.
Look, we've both seen the twinning. We know we come back here.
Oh, yeah. I know you've seen the twinning. You know the Crystal Tower is in Shadowbringers. You just don't know how, where, why, or what the fuck it's doing there.
I feel like that's half of Final Fantasy XIV you've just summed up right there. Regardless, the actual Alliance quest experience was fairly decent at this time, because as of right now, they have not done the roulette revamp that people were cheering/complaining about.
They were cheering at the fact that I'm not sure about the full details about it, but I basically know people basically found a way to scum the Alliance raid roulettes to always trigger Crystal Tower raids.
Okay.
Specifically the Circus Tower. And because it's the easiest of the raids to go through. Because you can just...
And so basically what you're telling me is that they were going to patch that out, so that way people would not do the CT series itself. It would actually properly generate into the other Alliance raids.
Yeah, so
which people didn't want to do because it takes too much time, and you only need to do X amount to get your dailies.
Yeah. You only need to do the Alliance raid once a day for your dailies. And even then, once you max out on the second form of Tomestones, you really don't need to bother with it. Because there are two types of current Tomestones. And one of them, you only get 450 a week. And the other one, you can get as many as you want, but it caps out at 2,000.
Okay.
And basically, you get a certain, like, the Alliance raids give like 50 of the 450 kind.
Okay.
So it was a good way to get those Tomestones quickly.
Okay.
By basically doing the Circus Tower.
Okay. So there are three Alliance raids that you do in this series, correct?
Yes. The first is the Labyrinth of the Ancients, where you go through the base of the tower.
Which, I want to say, as far as like a intro, it was pretty much solid. It was the first time I had actually seen like ready checks being done on an MMO scale.
Yeah. Because
my experience has always been either one or two people doing like solo instances, or going randoms in 4s or 8s for flight party or full party raids. So this was my first time doing anything on the MMO scale of the massively multiplayer online game.
Yeah, the 24-man raid.
And so I would say it was kind of relieving to seeing the mechanics of the first one are fairly simple. I don't think there was anything too complicated. I think we had like poison floors, and we just had to make sure that you are balancing things out okay.
Split up into 3 specific groups, A, B, and C, as correlating to your alliance.
Yeah, and I think most of it like was pretty self-explanatory, at least on this one. We didn't have any issues.
No, I think the only issue we had during the Labyrinth of the Ancients was when we were going against the Atomos, and you had to have 4 people on the platform. Our group decided to suddenly rush the Atomos, which prevented it from being attacked.
Right, yeah. Someone had to go back and sit there to go ahead and let it be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I think that was a pretty minor hang-up, so...
Yeah. The Behemoth, you're going to have to learn those mechanics.
Well, I've seen the NH Productions video about Behemoth in Monster Hunter, and so that wasn't too much of a issue. It was more just did you know that the hitbox extends outside of the stone? You can get hit?
Yeah.
It was basically one of those. That was the only reason I died in that instance.
Yeah, you're going to have to learn to duck and cover from a big raid
Well,
wide.
it means keeping your hitbox behind the thing that's supposed to be blocking it.
Yeah. Oh, and be warned, sometimes those things that you're hiding behind will explode.
Yes, I think we've seen that in later raids.
Yes.
The one that we actually kind of had trouble was Siri. No, it wasn't. Was it Syracuse? Or was it the World of Darkness?
It was the World of Darkness we had the most issue with.
Okay.
But let's talk about the Circus Tower.
Oh
first.
man, when we ran the Syracuse Tower, we had some salty bitches.
Yeah, people.
In the chats.
There was, I believe, it was in our specific alliance.
Yes, it was in our alliance C.
Yeah, and someone was just pissed at the fact, like saying, "All right, who's the fucker who triggered Crystal Tower?" And I was like.
No, and I kept telling you, like, we were doing this over voice chat, and like, how the fuck does this man still have the patience to do the raid and still bitch at the same time?
Not to mention that the fact the bastard died to Amon's raid-wide attack.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, bitches, and I remember seeing in the group chat, like, saying, bitches about Crystal Tower dies to its mechanics.
Yeah.
And I believe that shut him the fuck up.
Yeah, you kind of can't come back from that one. I think even I said, like, this man too salty for his popotos.
Yeah.
Like, good lord.
But yeah, the one that we actually had the most difficulty with was the World of Darkness, because usually when I go through that one, it's with people who have done it a million times.
But what was it, the Death Eye or the Death Ahriman was kicking our asses.
Yeah, the weird Ahriman. I forget what it's actually called, but it's actually a boss from Final Fantasy III.
Yeah.
But its mechanics really fucked us over.
Yeah, no, it was the roulette death and the staring at it when its death blaze goes up.
Yeah.
Like, it took us it took the Alliance, like, I think 2 or 3 tries before we actually cleared it properly.
Yeah, that was where we had the most issue, and then we got to Cerberus, and that was actually the first time I've actually learned you actually have to tether the fucker when he breaks out of the chain.
Yes, I also participated in being on the inside of Cerberus to beat him up.
Yeah, I forget. You have to shrink down, get inside him, beat him the fuck up, that weakens him so you can put the tethers on him.
Yes, you have to wait for a specific attack that he does, and you have to actually sit in range in order to get swallowed by him.
Yeah.
And that takes you inside his gut, you beat up his internal organs for a bit, and that's where you go ahead and the tethering mechanic comes back in. Yeah,
which was really interesting. I had never actually done that before, because I was always sitting on the side just smacking at him. Mm-hmm. That was usually my thing. I think for the longest time, I ignored the World of Darkness's mechanics, and this is the first time I actually bothered to be involved in them. Mm-hmm. And then the actual final boss of the game, of the encounter, the Cloud of Darkness, who is the final boss of Final Fantasy III, is actually pretty interesting. She will pop in and out on different parts of the arena,
right?
Fire huge blasts, and then at one point in the fight, she will start inhaling dark clouds, and you have to defeat the clouds that are trying to be sucked in before she gets to them. Otherwise, she's going to cause a massive
laser.
Yeah, they'll fuck you over.
Yeah.
You also have to do tower mechanics, where you go into specific spots and let a ball drop on you, pretty much, to absorb the damage.
Yes.
And again, for the most time, I just sat in her face and just beat on her ass.
Right. I try to remember. I think we both did DPS for those raids, because I think I kept swapping between Paladin and Monk for that.
I think you started off as Paladin for Labyrinth, and then you just switched to Monk for the others.
Yeah, because I wanted to just do a little bit more with my Monk, but also just so that way. Because I was having issues where I was not cycling with the off tank.
Yeah.
So I just said, fuck it, I'm going to just go ahead and be DPS then.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm a little nervous about ever being a tank, because tanks are really aggressive.
Yes, but I think I've at least gotten a decent hang of it now. Still, it was overall a pretty decent raid. I'm curious to see what the next series of Alliance raids are going to bring, just because it looks like that's where, like, in terms of, like, the massive scale of it, that's where it seems like all the meat and potatoes is.
The next Alliance raid is called the Void Ark series.
Mm-hmm.
And that is... I don't remember if it's referencing any Final Fantasy or not, but it deals with the Kingdom of Mach, which is one of the old civilizations in the series. Mm-hmm. And theirs is very Geiger-esque.
Okay.
Because I believe that the Kingdom of Mach was the Kingdom of Black Mages.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be a 9 thing, because I know that, like, there was a lot of Black Mage shenanigans in 9.
I don't know about that. I'd have to look at the bosses again, because it does deal with a lot of void scent in that one.
Mm-hmm. Could also be just a good old-fashioned 11 callback.
I mean, that's true, too. I'd have to actually look that up. If anyone in the comments wants to give me the answer, feel free to.
I think just as far as, like, Grahatia definitely has that follower energy, kind of like he is your Mashu, if that makes any sense. And I definitely feel like the fandom definitely enjoys him a lot. I mentioned before the comic where Goth Lalafell Healer is completely crushing on Grahatia. And now having interacted with him, he is the absolute beam of sunshine, which makes that chip make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think that mostly covers what we set out to talk about today.
Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and ask you how your experience with Final Fantasy has been so far.
I definitely see where people say this is the slog. Because these two like series are actually fairly good compared to the rest of the patch quests.
Yeah, the patch quests are. I'm not going to lie, the patch quests are a bit of a slog.
They are ass. They are sweaty ass.
Yeah, well, thankfully, I think you're about 15 quests away from finishing.
You say that like it's nothing, but knowing actual FF side quests, that probably is the case.
Yeah, like, I just think about it. Just a few more to go, just a few more
That's what everyone says, and then you're finally done with the bullshit.
Keep in mind, you are a spoiled little princeling compared to what some people have had to deal with in the past. So, there has been so much fat cut.
Yes. I have done a wiki dive in which I have scrolled to the bottom and it says, these are the following quests that have been removed.
And you saw how many there were.
There was quite a few, yes.
Have you done the quest line? Oh wait, you haven't done the quest line yet where you're falling around Tataru.
No, I have not.
That used to be multiple quests long.
Where you would follow Tataru.
I'm not saying. I believe you're helping her out, trying to help her figure out what she wants to do.
Oh yes, because I have done talks with Tataru intermittently throughout the patch quest. And it's like, oh, she wants to be a songstress now. Now she wants to be a street performer.
I believe coming up, she's going to want to try to be her Minfilia's bodyguard.
Tataru as Minfilia's bodyguard.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to her. So no, we'll see how the fuck this goes. Other things that I have done since the last time. I'm a flame sergeant now, so I am pretty much close to maxing out my rank within the Immortal Flames.
Yeah, I believe as you get...
I have unlocked Squadron quests.
Yeah, once you unlock Squadron quests, I don't think you can promote yourself any further until you do stuff with the Squadron.
Yes.
And that involves training up NPCs to go through dungeons and do all sorts of things. Basically, you have to guide them through, like, a Realm Reborn dungeons and train them up, and I think once you get to a certain level, you can start going up to even higher ranks. I haven't even done that.
Okay, and then the other thing I need to do is I need to progress at least to level 50 of Palace of the Dead. Because I have started that side quest, but you still have to go through Palace of the Dead in order to trigger the end of it.
Yes, you have... Yeah, thankfully, the first 50 floors you can do with a matched party.
Yes.
Which I have done multiple times.
And apparently it's considered the best way to grind 30 to 50.
Yeah.
From what I've heard.
I believe you can also do up to 60 into the Palace of the Dead. Yeah, I believe you can do up to 60 in the Palace of the Dead.
We'll see if that changes with the updates with Dawn Trail.
Well, no, because deep dungeons like that, there's a deep dungeon in ARR, which is Palace of the Dead, which helps you level grind from 1 to 60. There's one in Stormblood called Heaven on High, which gets you from 60 to 70. 60 to 70.
Okay.
And then there's Boja, which is a giant open area, which gets you from 70 to 80.
Okay.
And then there is Eureka Orthos and Endwalker, which gets you to 80 to 90.
Now, I think we overlooked this when we were talking about Dawn Trail before. Is Dawn Trail making the level cap 100?
Yes, it is making it 100.
So presumptively, there's going to be a deep dungeon in Dawn Trail, which is going to cover the last 10 levels.
I believe they have plans for a deep dungeon. I know they have plans for some more raids and the like. And I believe they have the idea for variant dungeons, which you haven't encountered yet. But variant dungeons were something that they introduced at the end at the end of Endwalker, where you go through different paths in this dungeon to trigger different events, and then you fight a boss at the end.
So they made a roguelike. They made roguelike dungeons for Final Fantasy XIV.
Yes, but there's actually set paths you go on.
Okay.
There's I believe there's 12 paths, and one of them leads to a hidden extra boss, which is pretty cool once you've done them all.
Mm-hmm.
I've done them once or twice just to get some, just because you get some stuff from it, which you can trade in for accessories, emotes, glamours, and the stuff like that. It's actually pretty cool, but they're not my cup of tea.
Okay.
Mainly because I'd need to get a full party together.
Right.
And we'd have to go through it together and say, hey, let's go down this path, or hey, let's try this path.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are actual guides on how to do every single path.
Okay, I see. I think that covers it for this episode. Hopefully the next one will be in about 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks, maybe sooner, if we're hoping. It depends on when you finish 2.55.
Yeah, that shouldn't take long, but I'm hoping that we can go maybe a bit more into Heaven's Ward, depending on how much we get done.
Okay.
If nothing else, we will go into 2.55 within the next month, and then we'll see if I get through Heaven's Ward, how far I get into Heaven's Ward by then.
Yes, that's a fair assessment.
Yes.
So maybe at least get your foot set into Heaven's Ward, see the voice acting changes.
Yes, because that still needs to happen.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I guess this is it for this episode of the Big Cat Aethercast. This is Ray.
This is Leo Force.
And we'll see you all next time.
Later.
Take care.